At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by FX's The Beauty Official Podcast. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's hottest new series, The Beauty, taking you behind the scenes with its amazing stars as they discuss the show's most jaw-dropping moments. Featuring Evan Peters, Anthony Ramos, Jeremy Pope, Ashton Kutcher, Rebecca Hall, Bella Hadid, Meghan Trainor, Isabella Rossellini, Jessica Alexander, and Ari Grainer. Search FX's The Beauty wherever you listen to podcasts.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
This is Jay Scott, and you are listening to The Hook, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Welcome, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great weekend. Saturday, we are going to be having Carl Spackler from the band Chinga from Vancouver, Canada. How you doing, Carl?
I'm doing great, man.
Awesome. Welcome aboard to the inaugural New Artist Spotlight, where we will be covering new artists, new bands, unsigned bands, bands on small labels, bands trying to get exposed. I'm a huge fan of new music. I'm a huge fan of Chinga. I caught your video probably about, 6-7 months ago. I was fooling around on YouTube, listening to some new music, and you guys were recommended in the slot after one song that was playing by a band called 1000 Mods out in Greece. And I just let it play, and I'm like, wow, who are these guys? Dived into your catalog and was really, really impressed.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Jay.
Well, as we do with every episode, our first question to our guests, the first time they appear, is the essence of the show. Like every rock song has a hook that sucks you in, every rock fan has a moment, whether it was a song, an album, a band, or performance that hooked them, that sucked them into rock and roll. What was that moment for you, Carl?
When I was really little, kind of a long-winded story, but I was probably in about grade 4, and my parents took us skiing, and I'd had like the Star Wars soundtrack, and I was vaguely aware of disco and shit like that, and maybe even younger than that, maybe it was grade 2, but we didn't have a lot of money, so we would go to this kind of crappy ski hill. It was cheap. We were growing up on the prairies, and down in the basement, all the folks who brought bag lunches would eat their lunches because we would make sandwiches. We couldn't afford to eat in the fucking cafeteria up there, even though I wanted to. And these older headbanger Hesher guys walked in, and they put a quarter in the jukebox or whatever it was back then, and a whole lot of love came on the jukebox really loud, and they were standing there kicking it, and my jaw hit the floor, and I can still remember, I can still see, them standing there in their stretchy ski pants with their fucking long hair, and like the sounds that came out. And sure enough, about 45 seconds into it, this old German fella jumps up from the table, runs over and starts screaming at them to shut it off. and I was going nuts, and they're telling him to screw off, and he fucking pulled the plug on it, jumped behind and pulled the jukebox out, and it was almost a big fight, and they were yelling at each other, and I just was like, well, whatever this is, that it can do that to that old bastard, like, I want to do this. What is it? And I remember my dad just tapped me on the shoulder and was like, you like that, hey? And that was it for me. I went and got whatever change I could scramble and went and bought Led Zeppelin too and wore it out. And soon enough, my neighbor told me about this other band, Black Sabbath, and then he played me Iron Man, and like that was it for the Star Wars soundtrack and whatever Disney records I probably had been playing. And I was hooked, and I started, checking out radio stations and just asking older guys in the neighborhood, what they were playing. Before I knew it, somebody played me a copy of AC/DC back when Bon Scott was still alive. And yeah, that either saved my life or wrecked my life. I'm not really sure yet, but it sure has been fun.
That's a great story. That's probably my favorite story so far on this podcast, about an old German guy yelling and pulling the plug on a jukebox while a whole lot of love was playing. That's awesome. So
yeah, it was quite the scene.
That's great. So you're the singer, bass player for La Chinga. Who was it that made you or influenced you to pick up the bass and start singing?
Geddy Lee, really, I loved early Rush, 70s Rush. The 80s mullet years, really wasn't that into it. But, I tried playing guitar, and I wasn't very good at it. And my grandfather, he fell into every place and wanted to get my way. He was a little more well off. But so I said drums. My mom said, no way. And then I said guitar, and I tried one of those Spanish ones at school in the school music room, and I was like, oh boy, I couldn't make a chord to save my life. And these guys were starting the band, and nobody wanted to play the bass, and I saw a bass. I was like, 4 strings, probably handle that. And that was it. I just wanted to get in there and play. And then for a lot of years, I didn't sing. I just played the bass. And played in a lot of bands, just bass. And then, started singing some backups, because I found I could get better jobs if you could sing a little backups, and tried to make a living doing that. And I don't know, one day, I was in a band and these guys were writing the songs, and I'd never written songs before. And I was just like, fuck, if these guys can write this, how hard can this be? And then I started writing, and then just started singing after that, really on my own. And that was that. It was just out of necessity, because I was not always digging the music I was playing as much. I would have all these ideas about, rocking. Usually it involved rocking a lot harder than what we were doing, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to play death metal or anything like that, but at the same time, I didn't want to play pop music and, the stuff that I loved, ZZ Top, Van Halen, all the stuff, all the great classics. I was like, well, let's try and write stuff in that vein, because that's what you listen to, that's what you dig, and, here we are.
So was there an artist that influenced you to write music and want to play live? I mean, we talked about the Zeppelin moment where it hooked you on rock and roll. We talked about Geddy Lee and Rush.
Yeah. Well, that, those guys for sure seem like they lived on Mount Olympus, and I bet they do. Like, I'm not. It was really there was a punk hardcore scene in the town I grew up in, and that was. I would go see these bands, and I was like, okay, I can for sure do this, and it's exciting and it's fast, and especially when it kind of moved into the crossover stuff. But Geddy Lee's vocals I always liked, Robert Plant's vocals I always liked. So there wasn't any one person in particular. I knew when we started La Chinga that most of my favorite records, there was a riff and there was some banshee wailing, and there's not a lot of that going on these days. Like the guy from Rival Sons has obviously amazing pipes, but when we first started out, and we've been going for a while now. There wasn't a lot of there's death metal screaming, and then there's kind of the stoner rock sort of talking vocal. But my favorite singers are Paul Rogers, Robert Plant, Bon Scott for sure, and they screech, they wail, they do it really fucking well. But it's that that high singing with so there's just something about that some loud riffing music. It just it never ceases to make me feel great. So that was where it started, and I think some people were a little shocked at first that was coming out of my mouth, like that voice. Like I can remember the guys in the band were like, really, you're gonna really sing like that? Because it's a pretty small little town here in Newlands. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna fucking belt it, whether I can do it or not. I'm gonna do it, and I definitely feel like I've gotten better at singing in that style. So, it was really just those old records, and still to this day, like when I'm listening to a new band, there's got to be a good riff, and then it's got to be good singing. If it's not good singing, who wants to hear it? Same with it. I mean, it's a total package. Drummers too. If you don't have a good drummer, just don't bother. I learned that the hard way lots of times, but
No, I agree 100%. For me, a song's got to have a melody. It's got to have a great singer. It's got to have that kick from the drums. It's got to have everything. For me to really kind of enjoy it and to grasp onto it. Now, you mentioned Bad Company and Paul Rogers. I just saw them in July here outside of Chicago. And Paul Rogers, I think, is probably 71 or 70, and he still sounds absolutely phenomenal. Just sounds great.
Oh, he's, the voice, right? Those free records, we love, and Bad Company for sure too. Yeah, he lives out here somewhere in White Rock, and he plays here every once in a while. I think I've gone to see him 4 or 5 times, and it's amazing at his age how he can still do it.
Yeah,
I saw Robert Plant last summer, and he can still do it. It's maybe not 100% of what he could do as a younger man, but he did a bunch of Zeppelin songs, and it was fucking amazing. And that's keep going, right? If you don't do it, you lose it. And those guys have just kept on rocking.
Absolutely. I mean, rock and roll till you die, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about La Chinga. You guys released your debut record in 2013. You released Freewheelin' in 2016. Beyond the Sky were pretty much a year ago this month, or coming up here in September.
Yeah.
How did you guys form? Where did what was the beginnings of La Chinga?
How did we form?
Yeah.
We, well, I was playing I had started a band before La Chinga that was, in a way, kind of, I didn't know it at the time, but it was a power trio, and it was me and a drummer and a guitar player. And, I was really into Blue Cheer, and I still am. I love Blue Cheer. And so we were really trying to do that sound, just obnoxious volume, long songs, jamming, and it was okay. It was good. I kind of liked it, but we just couldn't seem to get any traction. And we played for like 4 or 5, I don't know, 5, 6 years maybe even together. We never released anything, played a shit ton of shows. Nobody really liked it. We kind of liked it. And one day the drummer went on tour with another band, and the guitar player quit on me, and I didn't blame him. We were kind of just spinning our wheels. And I would get I was pretty frustrated playing with them, and they're great guys. They're just, we beat our heads against the wall for a long time, and so that band fell apart completely. And we had a gig booked, a festival summer gig out here that was a good payday, and I knew there was going to be a really good crowd at it. And I had no band, but I didn't tell the promoter he had hired me, and I had about a month, and I was like, fuck me, I'm not getting I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm getting that fucking paycheck, and that's going to be a great party. So I called the best drummer that I knew in the city and said, look, we'll split this money. I've got some songs. Maybe we'll learn a few covers, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And then I called the best guitar player that I knew, who I jammed with a few times in other projects through the year, and I played a little bit with the drummer as well. But those two guys were, and they still are, they're incredible musicians. And so I was like, it was supposed to be a one-off. I was like, look, you guys, we'll just three-way split, a whole bunch of beer. It's going to be really fun, blah, blah, blah. Let's play the show. And they were in, and we did just 2 or 3 rehearsals, and walked on stage, and we blew that crowd away. Frankly, somewhere there's some video of it actually on the interweb, and that was it. We even had a different name back then. We weren't called La Chinga, but we had a song, and we still have a song called La Chinga. And after the show was over, everyone was running up and going, "Oh my God, Carl, your new band's really good. I love your new band, La Chinga." And I say, "Well, that's great. That's not what we're called, though. It's not our name." And then if someone comes up, "Man, this La Chinga band's great," and I'd be like, "No, you got the name wrong. Thank you." And then it just stuck. And those guys had so much fun. They're still putting up with my bullshit all these years later.
So then you played that festival, you started writing music with each other, and then 2013 rolls around, you put out your debut, and you move on to Freewheelin' in 2016. And how did you guys connect with Small Stone Records out in Michigan?
Well, we just through the internet. That's the biggest thing. What is so cool about the internet now, and it's killed all the record companies, and probably killed a decent way to make a living for a lot of bands. But you can literally send your song, and if somebody's, like I'm talking to you, like we've gone to Europe a few times. It's all because of the internet. It's incredible. And we just sent some songs to Small Stone, knowing like we were big fans of that label. They put out one of my favorite records, the Brotlow, Right on Time, which is,
I love that band.
Probably one of the best. That's probably one of the best records of the last 20 years.
Oh, those guys are
and
great.
I was like, well, I'm such a fan, and I was like, okay, well, let's try and get on the same label as those guys because they're incredible. And Scott, bless his heart, emailed us back and said, yeah. And, the first record we put out on our own, and then the last 2 we put out on Small Stone. So yeah, we've been really blessed. And we always talk about the old days, and you'd stick a cassette in an envelope, mail it off to some jughead at some record company somewhere, and never hear again. And it was just so hard to get music out, to get the word out. Bands did it. I just never had any luck with it. But now with this, it's fantastic. We sell records out of our garage, and we'll mail them to Sweden and Russia, and it's just, I'll put the stamp on it. I'm like, I can't believe somebody in these other countries even knows who we are and wants to buy our record. It just still gives me a thrill,
Absolutely, man. I remember living in a house with a rock band in my early 20s, and they were a local band in Chicago. They were, of the same, influence of a old Van Halen, AC/DC. And I remember them putting together press kits back in the day, these big things in press kits and sending them out to record companies and management companies, and, really spinning their wheels and really finding it difficult to connect with people across the country, across the pond, overseas. And that's such a great thing about the internet is you don't need a radio station to kind of box you in and only play a certain amount of songs and no new music. If you really want to find good new music, you can find it. And it's really awesome how you can connect with bands. Like you mentioned, the Brought Low. I found those guys about a year ago as well, and I was blown away. I mean, that's a great band. They're out of Ohio, and just phenomenal stuff. How I found you guys, fooling around on the internet, listening to a couple bands and getting recommended. Your song was recommended next on YouTube, and I let it play, and I was like, wow, these guys are great. And what I noticed about you guys is instantly you hear the Zeppelin influence and you hear the Sabbath influence. But when you start peeling away the orange per se, you start to hear the Joe Walsh, you hear the ZZ Top, you hear the Bad Company, you hear Free, MC5, you hear all that. And what's really cool about you guys is it all seamlessly comes together. Like some new bands out there, you can hear their influences, but you can really hear them. Whereas you can hear your influences, but it's all seamless. It all feels fresh and new, and it doesn't seem like it's been rehashed and recycled from something else.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, we like a lot of kinds of music. We love everything, all those bands you just mentioned. Like if we get drunk enough at a show, which we don't do often, but we'll play Joe Walsh's "In the City."
That's my favorite song of all time.
Yeah, we'll just break it out like all of a sudden, and everyone in the room just smiles. Everybody raises a glass, and it's just like, isn't this fucking cool? How cool is this song here?
I love that song. Yeah.
So we dig all that stuff, and we really, we try to. I don't know. We just with those for me playing with those two guys, I can bring in just a really basic riff, and the sparks just start to fly, and they're off and running, and quite often they'll take it somewhere else, which is great. It's so fun writing with those guys. We're actually going into write our next record in the next couple of months. We've been just messing around with ideas and stuff, and we were just talking last night. I'm like, this is one of my most favorite parts, is like getting to actually, get in there and just like let go and just like, for me, I love songwriting. I love writing riffs. I love jamming, and we're really precious about it. We'll write a lot of songs. I'm like, okay, let's do this one. It doesn't mean we're gonna, even if it's not good, who cares? We don't have to release it. Let's just write it. You know what I mean? Like, we're just, some bands I've been in, it's like they really agonize over it, and it's very, it's a hard thing, exposing yourself. Like, hey guys, here's my idea. You're really putting yourself out there, and I've tried very hard to just be really fearless about it. Like, this is it. It sucks. Okay, we won't release. So I can put this one up. How about this? And just like, I throw as much shit at the wall as I can and see what sticks. Pardon the cliche, but like, writing with those guys is, it's so much fun. We have a lot of fun. A lot of times, if I can make them laugh, with, like, we had a song on our last record called Killer Wizard, which is just a boneheaded kind of Grand Funk Railroad ripoff or something. And I brought it in, and they were laughing, and they were like, "You're not serious, are you?" They're like, "This is so stupid, this riff." And I was like, "You guys," I'm like, "I love it. Let's do it." And now, it's like one of our drummers, it's one of his favorite songs to play. But first, he was like, "You can't be serious." And so, we have a lot of influences, and we really try to, they're channeled, they're in there, but there's so many. We, like, if you could see my living room, it's full of records. And, for sure, I'll listen to a mountain record, and I'm like, "Ooh, what a neat idea. We got to do something like that." And it'll it'll be in there, but it'll come out so mutated by the time it goes through those two guys' hands. And I won't tell them. I'll be like, hey, how about something like this? And it's, by the time it comes out, it doesn't sound like Mountain anymore. It sounds like whatever. It sounds like us. And it's just a blast. I'll write a song, and sometimes I'll think, oh, it's pretty close to that one. And then we'll play it, and then they'll be like, wow, it sounds like this other band. I'm like, really? No, okay, wow. And then, we'll debate, does it sound too much like something else? And in the end, we're like, oh, it sounds like us. It's good.
A couple times while listening to you guys, you can hear elements of old Van Halen with the arrangement and, the presentation of the music. It's really kind of cool because you're listening to your music and you hear, like I said, you hear the influences I mentioned before. And then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, this part of a song, intro or whatever, like the song Hell on Wheels, for instance, off of the last record. The beginning is a total Van Halen-esque beginning. And it's so cool how it kind of, and it punches through. And then all of a sudden you hear like the Zeppelin and the Joe Walsh and the ZZ Top. And it's like, this is awesome. Like, this is so great. I love how you guys do that. It's just a really, really cool part of, a really cool element of your band, how you can hear, it's like, it's so seamless how the influences you guys play just come right at you and it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, like that was just, that song was really written and recorded like live and right in the studio. Like, hey, we have some studio time. Like, okay, I've got this riff. Okay. And like, the guitar player and I we fucking love Van Halen. Like we talk about Van Halen all the time. We read the books, we're like, that's one of our favorite bands. Just always, if we're in the car, if we're driving to a gig, we're either playing Van Halen or UFO generally.
Awesome.
And, and that was like, yeah. Okay, let's do this. And it was done, we didn't think that was even going on the record. We just had like an hour left in the studio and it was like, well, we're paying for this hour. Let's cut this. And with that, we didn't even talk about it. It was like, yeah, let's go like this, and that's we just have fun, It's not to say we're not. Sometimes it's serious. There can be songs that have serious moments in them, and then sometimes we're just having a blast, And that's what I love about my favorite bands is it's the universal. They've got light and dark, And I think sometimes that's lost now. I hope it's not. I'm always looking for cool new bands. But sometimes you find it's like, well, they just sort of have this one flavor. They don't, it's cool. But by the time you get to the record, I'm like, the whole record. Like, yeah, it's sort of one thing, where Zeppelin, Van Halen, all the greats, this song's a lot of fun. This song's a little more serious. This is a party song. This is a song, whatever. You grab your gal and dance. This one's going to make you bang your head. This one might make you think. This one makes you want to drink a beer. Like, just like life. It's the universal.
I agree.
So like sometimes people, the real serious metalheads, I think sometimes don't always dig if we smile on stage, for instance, or whatever. But like, fuck them. We're having fun, and if you want to have fun, if you want to rock out, we're the band.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned some of the bands, that you were influenced by. You talk about the light and the dark. You mentioned Led Zeppelin. They can write a record or write a song like Boogie with Stu or record that, and then they can, on the same record, play a song or record a song called Kashmir.
Totally.
Yeah, and AC/DC. I mean, AC/DC's always labeled as a party band, and for the most part they are. But if you listen to songs like Ride On and Highway to Hell, and then you've got songs like Big Balls and all that. So there's some tongue-in-cheekness with the music, and that's a really cool way to write music and a really cool way to present your music too as well. I mean, it's universal for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Like when I first got Back in Black, I was kind of afraid of it. Like it was, I knew it was the new singer, and the packaging scared the shit out of me. Like it was just all black, and I was at my grandparents' house. I bought it at the drugstore down the street, and I smuggled it into the house. And they had a really killer stereo and headphones, and I put it on, and I was listening to it, and they were in the living room, and I was like, oh my God, like it just was so dark, and like that record sounded evil to me. I was just like, wow, should I be listening to this? Like, they're not going to dig it. And sure enough, I'm listening to it, and I had my eyes closed, and my grandfather pulled the headphone thing out and say, oh, what are you listening to? And I can't remember what song was on, but it came blasting out of the speakers. And they picked up the cover, and they were just like, they did not approve at all. And just like, and they were a party band, but at the time when I was getting to know them, they were like these scary motherfuckers. That guy's voice, those pictures on the back, the black and white photos, are songs about hell. Like, and let me put my love into you. Like,
yeah.
I was like, these are bad dudes, and I really dig it. And that my grandparents are so upset. Once again, just like the old German. Oh, my grandparents were pretty sweet, but they had never in their life heard anything like that. Like.
But that's the truth, though. You talked about that before with the Led Zeppelin in the jukebox, right? Now you mentioned with AC/DC, the element of your parents or adults not liking the music made you want it more, made you want to listen to it more.
Yeah.
It was like, why is everybody so getting crazy about this? And it added this whole new dangerous element to it. Like, you weren't supposed to listen to it. It made it so much cooler. I agree with you. That was the whole part of it back then. It
was so thrilling.
Yes. And I have a similar story too. When I first heard Van Halen, I was 7 years old. And it was 1982, and my brother had borrowed Van Halen 1 from a friend of his, and he was at school, and I don't know if I had a half day or whatever, but I was home with my mom, and I went in and took the record out of his room because my mom was cleaning the kitchen or something like that, and I took off her Barry Manilow record off the turntable and put Van Halen 1 in, put the jack in for the headphones, put the big, huge headphones on, and heard Running with the Devil for the first time. And I was mesmerized. I was like, man, this is badass. Like, this is, my journey was set at that point. I was like, it's going to be rock and roll music from here on out. And then I heard, You Really Got Me in the breakdown, where they're doing something in the record, the sexual overtones of the breakdown of You Really Got Me and all that. And I was hooked. That was it. That and hearing Running with the Devil, being raised in a Catholic family and going to Catholic school and hearing that, I knew I was not supposed to listen to it. I knew it was not, going to be accepted. So it made it so much more cooler.
Oh, for sure. It was like, I remember I had some friends that went to a Catholic school down the street, and they had someone come to their school and gave a talk to the whole school about the Satanic album. And sure enough, this one guy went home and took all his records, and he came out of his house and had all his records. He's like, I'm getting rid of these. And we all went home. We're like, well, thanks, man. I'm like, he's like, this is the devil's music. We're like, don't mind if I do. And one of them was that live AC/DC, If You Want Blood. And my dad was like, you can't do what? He grabbed it and was like, what are you doing? And I was like, that's okay. And he was shaking his head. And luckily, he was in a good mood, so he let me keep it because he was, he grew up with rockabilly and stuff. Like, he loved all that stuff. But yeah, it just made his head shake. There's a guy with a guitar coming out of his stomach, and he flipped it over. He's dead on the back, and like, I was like trying to like smuggle it in, like, and he knew. He was like, oh, the kid down the street, his parents are making him give away the records. He wants to, and you're taking them. I'm like, well, he's like, all right. And thanks, Dad.
I remember almost getting kicked out of Catholic school. My parents had to come to the school because a teacher found this Crocus record in my desk, and the cover of the album had a woman dancing or whatever, and her skirt was like, as she was twirling, her skirt like went up, and you could see like the bottom part of her underwear. And I remember my 4th grade teacher saw this, and she thought I was like Satan, himself, and I was going to go to hell for having this record. And my parents had to come down.
She was right.
She was right, But I mean, we talk about how it was back then. What still blows my mind is when Ozzy Osbourne was around in the early 80s, mid 80s. I mean, he was, people thought he was Satan himself. And I remember having to smuggle in Bark at the Moon or Blizzard of Oz, Ultimate Sin, all those records. And now he's like a pop culture icon, which just makes me shake my head. Like,
yeah.
I tell my son, I'm like, you had no idea what I had to go through to listen to Ozzy Osbourne. It was like covert ops getting that record into my house. It was incredible.
Yeah. No, we would, I would be listening to stuff, and then when my dad came home, I had to turn it off. Like, or that was, and I would listen to it really loud, but it was like the secret. It was like having a porno mag or something.
Right? Yeah.
Back then. It was a little bit. I had the Iron Maiden album "Killers," and that cover like that. That snuck into the house. They never saw. I had that one, a freaking monster chopping a guy with an axe and stuff. Like, when I was older, one time too, and I got into like punk rock records too. My parents heard, some of those records, and they were like, "Do you need to talk to someone, son?" Like, when I was like 19, do you want to if you ever need to talk? And I was like, I'm fine. I'm okay. It's loud, aggressive music. Don't worry, I'm okay. I'm not going to kill the cat or anything. I don't think. But sleep with one eye open.
That's great. I even recognize that in the covers of your records. If you look at your album covers, they are a throwback to that time where the album covers were iconic in terms of the imagery, in terms of the artwork. I remember going to record stores as a kid and just thumbing through records for hours, admiring the artwork, looking at it, even buying records based on that. And that's something that's really cool. Because a lot of new stuff, a lot of new albums, a lot of new bands don't have that element anymore. The iconic logo, the artwork on the albums. It's really cool how you guys have done that.
Oh, thanks so much. We, that's in some ways that's kind of the hardest part. I've already been, thinking, okay, what's the next one? And we've been fortunate to work with 3 different great artists who have, we kind of come up with the ideas and then we tell them, and we've been really lucky to get to work with these great artists, and we're hoping our next one has some, I don't know what it's going to be called or even on it, but it's definitely that's definitely one of the trickier parts. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to do this?
Well, that's my next question. So what is the future for La Chinga? You mentioned you guys starting a new record here in the next couple months. Beyond the Sky came out September of last year. From September of last year to now, where has La Chinga gone? If you look back over the last 365 days and then versus the next 365 days, what's going on with La Chinga?
Well, the last year we played a ton of gigs. We went down and played in Texas at the South by Southwest Festival. We played the hell out of our neck of the woods around here. We'll play anywhere. We finally, got our American paperwork. I'm not sure if you Americans know, but it is really fucking hard to cross the line as a rock and roll band. It is a ton of paperwork, and we have a pass now where we come down for a year. So our goal is to come to the States as much as we can. We don't really make a ton of money doing this, so it's tricky for us to go for extended periods of time, but we will, if somebody wants us and we can make it happen, we're coming. We're going down to California to play in October, and we're gonna go back to Europe in January, and somewhere in there during all of this, we're really, really gonna try and get this new record recorded. Hopefully this fall we're gonna have it. It's a funny thing, sometimes recording can go really fast and other times it's a little longer. So you don't really, you don't know what you're getting into, so you get into it with that stuff. For us. So yeah, it's getting record number 4, and we'd like to get it out sooner than later, but it just depends how it goes, But yeah, we're not stopping. We love doing it. We played last night, and even though it was a concrete bunker of a place where I could not believe, Jesus, it was so loud. But we had a ton of fun, and the people who came out had a ton of fun. My ears are ringing, and yeah, we want to do it again. Somebody wants to have us come and play, just let us know. We'll try and find a way. We'd love to come to Chicago. Yeah, so
what?
Yeah, that's about it.
Being in different places. You mentioned Europe. You mentioned, obviously you're from Canada, and you mentioned playing some places here in the States. What are the differences with the music scene, quote unquote? I mean, how is each place different?
We've been to Spain a few times, and that is, if you're a rock and roller, if you're playing in a band, I highly recommend going to play Spain, because those people are just so mad for it. They get into it like no other place I've ever played. They treat us really well. Like, it doesn't even compare to North America. We had a great time in Texas, and people were lovely to us, and it was awesome. Generally, people are pretty nice to us in most places, but like, you go there and the promoter greets you at the door and takes you out for dinner. Sound checks are really long. Like, they're just so into music. Like, they're so into art, and they. When we went there the first time, people were singing along to the songs, and all of us were on stage looking at each other like, can you fucking believe this is happening? Like, you guys know the words to our songs? Like, holy shit. And, we also, too, we'd go over there, they'd be like, can you play for like 2.5 hours? And be like, what? Well, we can, but like, we're used to, over here lots of times, like, yeah, 30 minutes set, 45 minutes set, 5-band bill, blah, blah, blah. And we go over there, and you're the only band on the bill, and people come watch you play. When you're done playing, 2 hours, and then 3 hours later, they buy a bunch of merch, you sign some autographs, and then they leave. It's just so different. It's awesome. It's more than like when we play. Sometimes you play here, and it's like, okay, so you guys are on 10:15 to 10:45. If you go overtime, we're turning the PA off. There's no beer. Get your shit and get the fuck out. It's more of a meat grinder sometimes in other places. And over there, it's lovely. But, God, I love going to America. I love playing the States. So, yeah, for us, I don't know, everywhere is a little different. We enjoy playing for people we don't know, because then you're getting like a really true reaction, like, a room full of strangers. I love doing that. Like, we get all hyped up before the show anyways, and like, okay, let's go out there. Let's fucking do this. Let's go out there. Let's fucking blow the doors off this goddamn place. Here we go. It's kind of like our little huddle, and the drummer's always like, shut up, this isn't a football team. I'm like, let's fucking go. And we run out on stage and just have a blast. And hopefully, generally, people seem to get into it. We rock out, and they rock out. And that exchange of energy, wherever we are, is, another one of the things we live for.
I love when that energy, comes out like that. I go to a lot of shows, go to a lot of concerts, either in Chicago, the surrounding area. I go up to Milwaukee a bit too. And sometimes I take my son, he's 14. And we went up to Milwaukee to go see the Raconteurs. And they came out, Jack White came out, fired up. The energy from the stage and in the crowd was like the first 6 songs was just, 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. And at the end of the show, I'm walking out, I look at my son, I go, that's how it's done. He's like, what do you mean? I go, that's old school. Like when I saw a show when I was a kid, the band came on and they held you, the energy just held you for however long it was, but it was like a big punch when they came out. And that's how it was with the Raconteurs. And I've seen a lot of newer bands too, and they're good and they're really good live, but there's never that moment I've seen yet. Well, I've saw Rival Sons. I've seen them, and they had that moment where it just they go right up the mountain, and it just stays there the whole time. It's a beautiful thing when that happens. It's just like this synergy that's just you can't even describe.
Oh yeah, and memories you'll have for life.
Right. Right.
That's you get bonded to bands for forever. Like I saw Van Halen once with David Lee Roth, and way back when, the 1984 tour, and forever. I'm always going to love that record. I'm always going to hear that record and smile. I can still picture that show. Yeah, he went on stage and was like, "Hey, Calgary, how's it going?" And what did he say? "You make Texas look like Pakistan, man." The whole place erupted in laughter, and just what a showman, what an energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's stuff like that you remember forever.
I feel you, man. I totally agree. Some of the greatest memories were from my childhood or my early 20s or whatever are from a show, and then connecting. And then once you hear a show and you hear it played live, the song never sounds the same after that. It opens up a whole new door that wasn't there before you heard it live. So for you guys,
totally.
So for you guys, start working on the new record. You got some, tour dates coming up. How does the recording process for you guys go? You touched on a little bit where you just play a song that you've been, you have an idea for and see where it goes. Does each guy bring an idea in, or is it all just collective with all three of you guys? Once you guys get in the studio, do you do stuff before? How does that work?
Well, I'll bring in an idea, and usually to the rehearsal room. We got a great little jam room that we go to on the weekends, and I'll play a little bit, and then the guys will tinker around a little bit, but we don't want to overplay it. I don't know. What we've always done is kind of go into the studio with, it's just sort of it's an idea. It's not totally fleshed out, and try to really capture something, being born, so to speak. They're not, we haven't been playing them. It's like, okay. And that's just how it's worked out. Maybe this one will be different, but so far every record is like, okay, we're in the studio. What do you got? Oh, remember we kind of tinkered with this? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then let's just take 15 minutes here and okay, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? Sure. Okay. Turn the machine on. Here we go. Let's try it. We 2 or 3 takes. And if we like it, then we keep it. But we don't. I've read that Bob Rock plays songs, gets the band to play the song 50 times or something like that. And I think I might have ADHD. I don't think I could play a song 50 times in a row. I like to have the sparks flying right there. It's like, okay, this is how it goes, I think. what about this? Okay. Oh, you know what? It needs a bridge. Was that a bridge? Or whatever. And we just make it right there. And we've done that for pretty much every single record. I don't think we've come in with any fully formed songs, just sort of half baked. And it keeps it fresh, and it feels really exciting, to be flying by the seat of your pants. Like there's times we're looking at each other and our eyes are bugging out of our heads because we know the tape's rolling and we're doing this part, and I don't really know how it's going to end. And I'm actually not even sure where we are in the song right now because it's being written while we're playing it. And then, it's just exciting. And it doesn't always work out, but who cares? It's like, I'm like, well, let's write another one. Here's another riff. There we go. I really try to be, like I talked about before, just as brave as possible. I'm like, you can laugh at this idea or you can think it's stupid. I don't care. Let's try it because you might not be right. I might not be right. A lot of great songs, bands wrote them, and people in the band are like, this one's not so good. And then they hear them back later and they're like, wow, hey, you know what? That is pretty cool. It's hard sometimes. You're in the moment. You have zero perspective. I always say, if somebody likes something about this, let's give it a try. Because at the end of the day, it really sucks. Just delete it.
Yeah, and I also think too, the energy when you're doing something organically like that, where it's just you don't know where it's going to go, and you're just kind of playing, and it's kind of like an adventure, a journey for each song. And I think there's an element, it brings out like a freshness of it as well, because your guys are discovering it as the listener's discovering it almost, the listener doesn't know where the song's going to go when they first play it. And it kind of sounds like you guys didn't either when you guys first started playing it. So that's kind of a cool connection with the audience.
Sure. Yeah. There's energy, there's some fire, hopefully there's some cool twists and turns and some action. And, and at the end of the day, we're just like, well, if we dig it, hopefully somebody digs it. We really are making the music in a weird way for us. Like this is what we like. This is what, like you were saying, those influences, that's what we live and breathe. The majority of the music I listen to is that side. I listen to the blues. I'll listen to old school country music lots of times. Like last night I got home at like 3 a.m. I was listening to some old Warren Zevon, half drunk, listening to Carmelita over and over. But at the end of the day, when we go in the room, it's like, fuck, give me a big rock riff and give me a huge beat and somebody scream, and here we go.
It's a beautiful thing.
So, yeah, we like action. Like when we play, there's energy, there's action. It's exciting, I think. Anyways, when I go see a band, that's kind of what I'm looking for too. Like, make me care. You put out some energy. Don't be so cool. You just stand there and like, I don't know, maybe some people can probably do that. I can't. Just stand there and play your guitar and like, yeah, that's okay. I want to sell that sizzle. And when I hear my favorite rock songs, like I'm either dancing or, banging my head or whatever. I always laugh, with the music people dance to today. It's like, yeah. And I'll put on like, to me, like that Motorhead song Bomber. That's a total, to me, if I want to cut a rug, I'll put that song on. It makes me want to fucking dance around the living room, or like a lot of those records are, you want to dance, you want to groove, you want to rock out. They're hard driving, but at the same time they swing. They're funky.
Yep.
And that's another element that I think that we have that the last producer we worked with, he was like, you guys are really groovy. Do you know that? And we're like, yeah, we're trying to get the girls to dance, do the guys to rock out. hopefully your old lady wants to shake her ass too.
I mean, I agree with you, man. I mean, you know, it used to be where, you know, the song can swing, you know, like when you talk about the song Bomber, right? You hear that drum kick, you hear the guitar, you hear Lemmy's vocals in that, and that song can really, it makes you tap your foot, you know? I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It's Motorhead. It's just in your face rock and roll, and it's about having a good time and jumping up and down and all about the energy.
Yeah. I love that stuff.
When I see descriptions of you guys online, now it used to be, and it sounds like we're from the same, you know, generation, but it used to be, it was rock and roll, hard rock, heavy metal. That was the genres that you had to deal with when my age, when I was, you know, when I was a kid. And I see now like all these sub-genres, and sometimes I don't understand them. And I see the stoner rock label put on La Chinga. And for me, all I hear is great rock and roll. Great. I mean, that's what I hear. I don't hear stoner rock. I don't hear this type of rock. I hear rock and roll. How does it make you feel when you're categorized in that? Does that box you into a certain thing? Does it kind of hinder you? How do you feel about that?
We get asked to play a lot of stoner rock festivals, so we're always honored and thrilled that anybody wants us. Like, we'll play anywhere. We're hoarse. Like, they're like, hey guys, yeah, let's do it. Let's rock out. You know, they say a gig's more fun than jamming most of the time. The jamming's pretty fun, but so the labels, it hasn't really, you know, we do sort of stick out on the bills. I find we're different than everybody else, but on the bills generally, but it doesn't bother me. We just think of ourselves as a rock band, just like you say. Like, we get, you know, I like heavy metal. I love a lot of heavy metal. I don't love the really extreme stuff. Like, I think it's just a generation gap. As soon as the death metal stuff started, I'm just like, I just don't know what's going on. Why is the guy screaming at us like that?
I tapped out too.
You know, and yeah, like I think it's the younger guys that I hang out with, they love that stuff, and they totally get it. Like if that stuff comes on, I'm like, whoa. Why are you guys doing this? But, so yeah, we sort of, you know, to me, like, a lot of early heavy metal is still rock and roll. You know, even like the Nawabum stuff, I love that stuff. Even early Iron Maiden, yes, it's heavy metal, but it's still rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like, it's, and then it definitely, when it gets really metal, okay, that's metal. That's just pure metal. And we're a rock band that dabbles in metal. We're a hard rock band that we love. I love a lot of that sleazy 80s Sunset Strip stuff. We love that shit too. You know, we don't wear spandex, or anything like that, like a steel panther or whatever. But we love so many kinds of music, mostly different kinds of rock. And at the end of the day, for us, it just comes out as rock and roll. You know, punk rock, sleaze rock, you know, hard rock, heavy metal, and it's all the same, really, to a certain degree. So yeah, the stoner rock thing, it doesn't bug me. It's kind of, you know, back in the old days, I think they just called it heavy. If you smoke pot and listen to Led Zeppelin, you're a stoner.
Or what was the phrase? I don't know if they had this up in Canada. The burnout. You know, the Iron Maiden back patch, or the Judas Priest back patch, or the Saxon back patch, you know, on your jean jacket. I remember those days. And you know, when you mentioned the new album, you know, movement as well, you know, the early Maidens, the Diamond Heads, the Tigers of Pantangs. I love that stuff. It's so...
I love that. Oh, it's so exciting. The Tigers of Pantang, that's, like, to me, that's just great rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, it's just ass-kicking hard rock, you know. UFO, like, I guess, or the heavy metal, I don't know, I guess. I mean, it's just wicked rock and roll. You know, even Diamond Head. You know, you can hear the Led Zeppelin in them. You know, it's we love that stuff.
I love that.
Exciting.
Yeah,
it's exciting music.
I love that movement because it was so honest and so primitive. Like when you listen to all those bands, there were no frills. You know, there were no tricks in the studio. It was just they played it, they recorded it, and they put it out. And it is what it was. You know, it wasn't anything fancy with all these different arrangements and all that stuff. It was just like you said, man, just rock and roll.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And fun. Yeah. Innocent, fun, raw, rough. You know, do it yourself. I just got a compilation a few months ago of a double compilation of really rare new album tracks I'd never heard before. This vinyl thing that came out, and I just love playing it because it's, you know, you can just hear the passion these guys have to like go and kick some ass, and maybe it's not always, you know, played at at the highest caliber or whatever, but that's what rock and roll is. You don't have to be an amazing musician. It helps, but if you know your limits, kind of, so to speak, or whatever, and can work your way around it, you know, some of my, you know, what was I listening to yesterday? That Girls' School song, Demolition. That's a great rock and roll song. I don't know if you know that one. It's just like, it's so exciting. It's just one riff, and they scream demolition every once in a while, and just fun. Just, you know, makes me want to, you know, get in the car, roll the windows down, crank it up, and you know, do burnouts in the street.
My drug of choice is Discogs, and it's going to be the death of me because when I go on there and I start looking up like Vardis records or what's the other, you know, Tank records, I'm like, I must have it. And then I'm like, I just spent this much money on this stuff, you know, because you can't find it. You can't find it really anywhere. You got to like really search for it.
Yeah, and it's always that stuff's always in England. My want list has sometimes some really scary, expensive records will come up, and I try not to show my wife. They'll come in the mail. I'm like, don't worry about that.
But I needed this. I needed this.
Sell it. Yeah. She's like, but what? You just listen to it on Spotify. I'm like, now I own it. It's mine. I have the artifact. You know, it's just something so fun about pulling the vinyl records out, and looking at the art, and you know, it just makes you feel like a little kid again.
It's the physical connection, you know, and I think, you know, I've talked about this on previous episodes where the biggest problem with the music industry today is the lack of connection, physical connection people have with music. It used to be you could hold it, you could touch it, you could feel it, and you could listen to it all at the same time. Now there's nothing to hold in your hand. It's all point, click, download, play, and it doesn't have the same vibe as it did years ago. And I think once, if at all, we're able to capture that again, I think you'll see a whole different type of movement, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's you know, for people today, like they don't even, I find anyways, people struggle to listen to, they'll struggle to listen to a whole song. They'll listen to the beginning, but shit, skip.
Yeah.
Like they just have, seems like attentions are shorter or something. I don't know.
Well,
I'm not to have to get off my lawn at the moment for the old man, but sometimes it's like,
no, I don't think it's,
you know,
I think it's
like,
more.
You guys,
Go ahead.
No, I don't know. Just like you're not even giving it a chance, or like I'll listen to new music and I'll be like, yeah, it's pretty good. Oh, next. You know, Spotify doesn't even pay the artist until the person's played it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I just find people just scroll through shit really, really fast. At least the youngsters that I hang out with, anyways, I'm always like, man, you guys got ADHD for sure. Here, you know, that is, I think the other, maybe the other side of the internet is there's everything. You know, when I was a kid, you were into music. You know, you went home and you listened to the records and you were just into the music. That's the guitar players that I knew. They took their guitar to school. You know, the basketball players had their basketball at school. They were bouncing it, walking down the hallways. Everybody sort of had their thing, and they did it. Whereas now I find people are like, they like a little bit of everything, which is cool. But we always debate, like, why are there not as many guitar heroes around as there used to be, or not many new ones? And we always find a good player and stuff. But, remember when you were little, like, it was like, there was always the debate, okay, who's the best guitar player? Who's the best guitar player? Nobody really, people talk about the old guitar players, but no one's ever like, other than Joe Bonamassa or whatever like that. People don't, when the new bands come, it's rare, it's like, wow, that guy shreds, I find anyway, where it was always the great debate, who's the best drummer, and just knowing the players that I know, like when they were little, that's all they did was they played all the fucking time. Our drummer played the drums all the time. The guitar player, he played the guitar. That's all he did. He was just didn't play basketball, didn't do this, didn't do that. That's what he did. And there wasn't, the internet. There wasn't a million things. There wasn't, video games were okay. And now it's like everything is kind of, you can do everything. And maybe you don't have as many people doing one thing really well, to me anyway. That's my theory for why there's not as many guitar heroes.
Well, I think it is slowly changing. I think rock music is on the cusp of a resurgence. I think a band like Chinga is going to be there. I think you guys are going to help lead the charge. I think if you look over the last 2-3 years, there's a bubble of new bands and newer music that's just underneath the surface. And I think there's a couple new bands that have been really successful, and I think that's going to be good for everybody in the long run. I think, when you talk about the Greta Van Fleets and the Struts, whether you like them or not, they're good for the whole, they're good for the whole brand of music, of rock music. And,
100%.
Yeah. And I think it's coming. I think it's coming back. It'll never be what it was, but it'll be different, but it'll be just as good. And the new music that's out there that I've heard, that I'm listening to, is just kick ass. And, in closing, Carl, I want to thank you for doing this. Chinga is just an outstanding band. For all my listeners out there, all my Twitter followers, check this band out. They are kick ass. If you like the Zeppelin, if you like the Sabbath, ZZ Top, those types of influences, like we talked about earlier before, you're going to like this band. So any final thoughts, Carl?
Well, thanks so much, Jay. I just want to say thanks so much for doing this. We're honored and thrilled to be on your podcast. And, hopefully one of these days we get to Chicago. We'd love to come and play. And, keep on rocking, man.
I do appreciate it, and I do hope you do come to Chicago, because I'd love to see you guys play.
That's definitely on our list, man. We'll make it happen for sure.
Awesome. Well, hey, once again, this is The Hook, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. I'm Jay Scott. Everyone have a great day out there, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.